So,
So, fear, they say that it stands for an acronym: false evidences appearing real. And the truth of the matter that there's actually fears that holds back from finishing what you start. Hey, welcome to another rare conversation. I'm Tony Jalen, joined by the wonderful.
Danielle Jalen.
Yeah, that screen right there. All right. So for those guys that are joining us live on YouTube, on Twitter, welcome. If you're part of the Rare Leader Facebook group, welcome. If you're not, we encourage you to go ahead and do a search in your Facebook, Rare Leaders, and we'll go ahead and send you an invite to join the group. So last week, Danielle, we talked about how to make tough decisions. And we talked about sometimes you gotta think about, okay, you know what? Am I gonna be okay with this decision if it fails? And I think a lot of times, there's fears that hold us back from finishing what we start. And even though we have every intention of finishing it, like, we just don't finish it. And what I've learned over the years is that sometimes it could be that you're actually harboring several fears that are actually holding you back from finishing what you start. So we're going to go through those three here today in our conversation. So I think the first one that I've experienced when going after different goals and things I want to achieve is the fear of failure. And I think it's actually one of the most common fears people deal with. And I think all of us experience at some point in their life. And how many times would you say, Danielle, in terms of for you, has fear undoubtedly held you back from finishing what you started?
Well, I think sometimes that it's not so much that it's holding me back. It's like the part of once I get there, then what?
Mhm.
And the questioning of like, how do you continue at that point because you've never been there? Also, the same point of um, once you get there, knowing all the work that it took to get there, and how do you maintain that same level of work that got you there?
That's a really interesting thought. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, it's like almost you're almost saying not just the fear of failure, but almost the fear of success.
Right.
For those guys who are watching, if you feel you've been in the same place, go ahead and put it in the comments. Um, I can say I've been there too, right? And I think sometimes that comes down to the fear of am I worthy or not,
Right.
or do I deserve this or not? It's such a crazy thing to think about. I mean, I think the fear of failure will hold you back from doing things that need to be done, things that you need to conquer. Um, and I think also when you have this fear, it also, mm, what's the word I'm looking back? It keeps you almost in that comfort zone area, don't you think?
A little bit, yeah.
And I also think the fear of failure leads to procrastination. I was asked this morning on a call. I was talking to a candidate, and they go, you know what? If you were to go back and tell yourself to do this when starting your role, what would that be? I had to think about that for a moment because a lot of different things came to my mind, but I thought, you know what? Fail fast. Fail fast. And their comment was like, really? I'm like, yeah. I go, I think so many times, I mean, you got to take calculated risks. You got to put some thought into it, but sometimes you just got to do it. Like life teaches itself. And I think the fear of failure holds people back. Like, what if I don't succeed? Like, what if it's not my name going to be called? And I think we got to flip that around and says, well, then what? Is that going to be that bad? Well, probably not. Then maybe we think of flipping that question around, thinking about, okay, what if I do succeed on it? I think another fear that's gotten my way in over the years is that the fear of losing something. Although this fear is probably not as common as the fear of failure, one of the reasons, we may be putting something off is because of our fear of losing something. What do you think?
Which can happen because I think as you continue to move forward and go towards your goals, you start to change and become better. And so a lot of that you have to look at, am I going to lose friendships? Am I going to lose coworkers? Am I going to still have friends or teammates that, are going to want to be with me if I'm doing better? And that we're not hanging out as much or something like that. Like I think sometimes that can, because then you're looking at making new friendships or new, teammates, and how does that look in my future? And I think a lot of these have in common is the fear of the unknown, uh,
Right.
as much as failure or what am I going to lose.
Well, I mean, change can be scary, right? And I think sometimes when you fear you're going to lose something that you currently have in your life, but then what? I think that's the question that keeps on coming up. But then what? Um, I think also for us to remember that change is automatic, but progress is not. And I think that's where we got to be intentional around that change. And you know, I shared this on Saturday when I spoke to a whole bunch of athletes. It's that I think we forget that it's not so much about the goal, but it's who we become in the pursuit of that goal. I mean, you've trained different things over your life, Danielle, and I just like saw the changes that happened through you in doing it, right? And, I know right now you're doing the 75 hard program. Yeah, I just put that out there for you. Um, and there's things you gotta lose in order to complete that program. For those guys who are not familiar with this program, go ahead and explain to them what the program is, Danielle.
Go ahead, you finished it.
No, I'll let you finish it. You're
Okay,
doing it right now.
go ahead.
No, I'll let you do it. Really, seriously.
Okay.
No, we only got 30 minutes here. You got to share.
It's doing 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each. One that has to be outdoors. Following a meal plan, reading 10 pages a day, no cheat meals, no alcohol, which that's like obviously so hard for me. Um, not drinking. Uh, and then the last one is taking a progress picture each day.
Yeah. So you got to lose some old habits in order to go in and embrace new habits. What would you say has been the toughest thing in terms of, like that you had to lose in order to gain, that you had to like give up, so to speak?
I think the biggest thing was the no cheat meals kind of a deal where, um, as much as you don't realize the grazing and maybe the comfort foods that you eat in a day, and just replacing that so-called comfort food with a healthier snack. Um, because there's been times like where I felt like, oh my gosh, like just overwhelmed with different things going on, that it would have been nice to sit down and eat a Reese's peanut butter cup, or and just knowing like it's not going to help me get better or move towards my goals by doing that.
Right. And that's just how, like, for those of you guys who are listening, it sounds so simple to do this program, right? 2 workouts a day, one must be outdoors, cannot be consecutive. You got to drink a gallon of water.
Yeah, the gallon of water.
Yeah, yeah, you got to drink a gallon of water. No cheat meals, no sugar, no alcohol. Um, and I hear people from that I share that program with. It's called 75 Hard by Andy Frisella. And they're like, oh, I could never do that. And I think because they fear of losing something. I did it, Ezekiel did it, now you're completing it. Um, because some of those things, comfort, people like comfort, and change can be scary. you know. I think the third common fear is that others will judge you. Let's talk about that in terms of why people don't finish things.
Well, I think fear of people judging you. You know, maybe it's because it's not something that they would do, as you're talking about, and that what are they going to think of me if I'm doing this, or how is this going to affect our relationships if I'm doing this or making these changes? Um, I think that all comes into play with the fear of others judging you.
Yeah. And it's your life to live, right? You get to choose what you share with the world. The world isn't entitled to you. And I think, when I remember when I was younger, like my late teens, and I was just at a different stage than my friends. It wasn't that I was better than them, but I just decided different choices. And I'll never forget the day in which, they were playing Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, and they had a 30 pack of Miller High Life. And it's fun. I mean, boys are gonna be boys, right? And finally, I just stood up and I'm like, guys, I can't do this anymore. And they literally said, "Oh, you're too good for us now." And you're gonna go ahead and be the next Tony Robbins and all these different things. And back then, I sort of got offended by it, and it made me sort of question um, why I did what I did. But then I look today, I'm like, I'm so grateful for those decisions I made. And I think the fear that others would judge you, um, unfortunately, could be true, right? And you look at people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Oh, it's not going to ever work out, Amazon. Nah, it's not going to work out. Yeah, yeah. Huh. Who's laughing now? Elon Musk. You're going to go ahead and challenge the big four? Really? Really? Yeah. And I think the one person that matters that is judging you is you. You know, um, if you have goals and dreams and aspirations, they're going to seem crazy to a lot of other people. And you may put them off or give up on them forever, right? If you just go ahead and say, what are others going to think about me? I know I have. There's times in which I had an idea that was just in my heart, that something I just wanted to do, and I had a couple people judge me here and there, or I was afraid of the preconceived judgment, and I didn't do it. I remember how much it would like just eat away at me. And finally, I just gotten to a point in different stages of my life where I'm like, you know what, screw it. Like, I'm gonna regret more if I don't do it than versus I did do it. Of course, I'm not a fortune teller. I can't really tell. Um, and I mean, look at the person who wins the presidency. I know I just went there. Um, but if they win by a landslide, it means they won 54% of the vote. That means 46% of people did not want them in the office. I think part of life is accepting that you're okay if people judge you and your actions. You gotta know who you are, right? So if you can think of a time, Danielle, when you felt like you were being judged, but then you know what? You started to say, you know what? I gotta know who I am, and I gotta go ahead and don't let others' perceptions of you change your own behavior.
Oh, I think a lot of that for me was coming home and not working, and just staying home full time and leaving teaching group exercise because I enjoyed it and I enjoyed the people that I was able to help and seeing the changes that they were making. At the same time, understanding like I was letting the needs of our family go to the side instead of making that a priority. And so I think anytime that for me, that was probably one of the biggest times where what are people going to think of me if I say I don't want to do this anymore? And making a different choice for our family.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to, when you're looking at if people are gonna judge you or not, what I'm hearing you say is like, you gotta decide what's really truly important to you. Like, what's more important to you? You know, these people who, sorry to say, like, they like you, but they have more concern about living their life, you know. Um, I think, that's some things too. Is like, I can think of times when I was offered different promotions and I said no. And in the back of my mind, I thought, God, they're gonna really judge me, like, for not doing this. But then again, it comes back to what's important to me. What are my values? What are the things that are are critical for my life? I think that's why it's so important to really identify what your values are. Because if you don't, it's easier to be swayed by other people. And I think there's tons of other fears that could be holding us back um, from finishing what we start by. In what I've learned in my experience, these are the three that have actually kept me back the most. If we were to do a bonus one, Danielle, that you feel that like has kept you back from finishing when you started, what would you say would that be?
Um, I think those are basically all. And then when we kind of started with the fear of success, like how am I going to continue to maintain all this work that I've put in to make the changes that you're making, and just kind of that fear of unknown, like what am I gonna, how am I gonna do this? Never done it before. How am I going to stay there once I get there? Because again, I think it falls back on other people judging you. If I slip backwards, what are people gonna say? Um, I think they all kind of just go all hand in hand in some sort of way.
Yeah. So if you were to give your final thoughts as it relates to fear, for everyone who's watching here today, what would you give them?
Just go after what you want. I think that it's important to just figure out who you are, what you value, and are those things more important to you than the cost of not doing it?
Hmm. Yeah. That reminds me of a quote that I just recently read. It said that so many people avoid the storm. Instead of avoiding the storm, learn how to dance in the rain. And Henry Ford said one of the greatest discoveries a person makes, one of his great surprises, is to find out that he or she can do what he or she was afraid he or she couldn't do. I think that's just my encouragement today is like, you know what? Call for what it is. If you've got some fear that you feel is holding you back, call it out. Call it out. But understand that that fear is nothing more than an obstacle that stands in the way of progress. And in overcoming your fears, you can move forward stronger and wiser within yourself. And the thing is, your story today is someone's inspiration tomorrow. So we appreciate you guys joining us for another Rare Live conversation. Again, Rare Leader stands for a leader who's resourceful, adaptable, resilient, and willing to engage with others. And sometimes we got to go ahead and embrace the fear and hit it right in the mouth and go forward. So until next time, I'm Tori Jalen, joined by the wonderful Danielle Jalen. Onward upwards.